Hello, I'm Pete Martin. Thanks for watching. For other videos of mandolin, fiddle, and other music subjects, click the subscribe banner below. To be notified when a new video comes out, click the bell icon. This series of videos shows how to begin improvising on the mandolin. It also works for the fiddle and violin as well because the fingerboard is the same. I suggest that you start with video number 1 in this series and progress through them in order as they tend to build on each other. There's a PDF file that goes along with this video, so email me and request it. It's very important to get comfortable playing up and down the appropriate scale for the chord that's being played. So this video will do that with the dominant scale. We're going to use the chord tone scale because that puts the note of the chord on every beat, and of course that synchronizes with the rhythm section and sounds good. In example 1, we play the D7 chord tone scale up from the root and reverse on F sharp. In example 2, we start on D, go up the D7 chord tone scale to A, and reverse there. Here's a very useful exercise I've found over the years of teaching. It starts on the lowest chord tone of the scale that we can play in first position. We then go up to the next chord tone, reverse the scale, go down to the lowest note, go back up to the next chord tone higher, reverse, go down, and etc. And eventually we end up going all the way to the highest chord tone we can play in first position and then reversing and coming down. This is example 3. In example 4, we're going to do exactly the opposite. We're going to start on the high end, the highest chord tone we can play for a D7 chord, and then go down the scale and reverse every time we hit a chord tone. This is example 4. In video number 9, examples 7 to 12 show triads on the dominant scale and many different ways that you can play those. You can go from a triad to the chord tone scale anytime the note of the triad lands on the beat. In example 5, I'm going to start on an F sharp. I'm going to go up a triad and then down the chord tone scale from C to D. This is example 5 here. video number 10, and of course I look up like that. If you need to review any of these things, click on that link and it will bring you to that video. But anyway, in video number 10, we saw dominant arpeggios and several ways to practice them. All of those are very useful as improvising phrases. In example 6 here, I'm going to start on an F-sharp note of a D7 chord. I'm going to go up the chord tone scale, the D dominant chord tone scale to A. Then I'm going to descend a D7 arpeggio pattern down to the note D. Then I'm just going to descend a D major arpeggio down to D an octave lower. Then I'm going to play the D dominant chord tone scale up to the D note an octave higher. So this is example 6. In video number 11, we saw the first of the 2 dominant chord tone scales, and we made a number of individual phrases out of those. Some licks that we can use that are derived from those chord tone scales. In example number 7 here, I'm going to start on an F sharp. I'm going to go up chord tone scale lick number 2, of course using the D dominant chord tone scale, up to D. Then the chord tone scale up to A. I'm going to descend a D7 arpeggio down to A an octave lower, and then down the chord tone scale from C to D. This is example number 7. In video number 12, we saw the second version of the dominant chord tone scale, including a number of licks that we can derive from those. They're similar to the first chord tone scale, but ever so slightly different. In example 8, I'm going to start on an A note. I'm going to go up the D dominant chord tone scale to C. I'm going to do lick number 5, go down to F sharp, do descending thirds, and then down the dominant chord tone scale to A. This is example 8. The point of this video is to show you how to put together things that we've looked at into lines that fit a dominant chord. Now here we're just doing D7, but you should do these through a number of keys. Start with keys that you're required to play in quite a bit with the people you play with, and work on those first. You can put a line together by just doing a little bit of one thing, a little bit of another thing, a little bit of another thing, like I described in this video. Notice that I'm not doing anything for very long. Okay, I'm not playing like 2 measures of just the scale, or 2 measures of an arpeggio, or 2 measures of any pattern. Okay, but I'm kind of going back and forth between all of them. So your assignment is to do this. It's really my suggestion that if you find something you like, write it down, record it, do something to remember it, and then practice that to get that set of notes in your hands real strong so that you can just recall it whenever you want to. This is a big part of learning what players call licks, riffs, phrases, whatever it is. But every improviser needs a bunch of these phrases in their vocabulary that they can play at any time. Okay, so this is a good way to start developing these. After you get to where you can do this on the dominant chord, make up these exercises in several keys, then move on to the next video. I'm Pete Martin. Thanks for watching.